Welcome to my world, bitch.
Never grow old, Michael.
The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Showtime.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sinister Scripts podcast. This is Ryan.
And I'm David.
And today we're going to be talking to you about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2.
Because it's a sequel.
That's right. So David and I had the opportunity to go watch this one in theaters. They only did like a 3-day run. I think we cut it on like the last day.
Yeah.
There were a grand total of 4 people in our theater, including us.
Yeah.
So, but don't let that deter you. And I'll tell you why. Once you listen to this and we discuss it and you get our input, you will understand why not to let that deter you from seeing it. So this film was directed by Rice Freck Waterfield, written by Matt Leslie, who I think wrote an awesome script, and we'll get into that more.
Yes.
And it was starring Scott Chambers as Chris Robin, Tallulah Evans as Lexi. Those are probably the 2 main characters. I couldn't find a budget on this one. It was kind of tough. They're kind of being a little coy with it. They say that it was estimated like $500,000, which they also say was 10 times the first movie budget, which if they did the first one for 50 G's, I get it. There was a big difference between the 2 in terms of quality. However, we'll get into talking about the movie. Let's do a quick little recap, maybe like a few minutes, just talking about the first one, just to give everybody a little background. So you, David, go ahead and start us off here.
Yeah, so the first one, I believe they start talking about how Christopher Robin, stopped showing up. So therefore, I guess he had a lot of picnics with them or something. But either way, they basically say that they were starving.
He abandoned them.
He abandoned them, basically. So they were starving. They resorted to cannibalism. And just killing people, eating them. They ate Eeyore.
The winters were hard in the 100-acre wood.
Yeah. So
They had to eat Eeyore.
And then he shows up with his girl. They attack him, and then just attack a bunch of other kids who were out partying, of course, because it's not a slasher film if friggin' bunch of 20-somethings are partying and get murdered. So
yeah. So that's pretty much kind of how it broke down. You're probably thinking that sounds terrible. Well, that's because there wasn't a whole lot of backstory. You got a little bit with the idea that he abandoned them and that's why they became evil. But they didn't really give a whole lot more detail on that. And it was the main character who they were after in this one. It was like a woman who was in therapy, and they told her to kind of get away for a little bit, go stay with your friends out in the countryside. It'll be therapeutic for you.
Yeah,
and then they get hunted down by Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of how they left it the first one, right? And the first one, which you think, oh, there's survivors. Christopher Robin was actually the only survivor in the first one. And that kind of set it up for the sequel, but the masks were bad in the first one.
They used what they could for the budget they had. Obviously,
it cracked me up every time because Winnie the Pooh was smiling. He had a smile on his face. So every time he's just putting someone in through a freaking wood chipper, and he's got this goofy ass grin on his face.
Grin.
Yeah, so it's it almost made me laugh, which I kind of appreciate because it was kind of like a horror comedy, but that's not exactly what they were going for.
Not really, no.
But I will say, with a small budget like that, the gore was cool. The violence was pretty good.
It was a great slasher movie for what it was.
Right. And I think on IMDb it's like a 4.5 or something out of 10.
Yeah.
That's probably right where I'd put it, like a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Once again, just kind of more or less taken into consideration, you're watching a movie called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Okay.
Right.
You know what you're
Getting
stay in
into.
your lane. Exactly. So they did a good job with it overall for what they had, but that's kind of where we start the second one. So the second one it kind of picks right back up where the first one ended, where Christopher Robin's escaped, and he obviously goes to the police and he tells his story, and as you'd expect it would sound if you said, hey, I was attacked by Winnie the Pooh and fucking Piglet, no one believes him.
Exactly, no. And I think they said it was a year later, like that old horror movie trope where something happens to the victim and then a year later some other shit happens. So.
Right. So he flees, he survives, he's kind of this pariah, and everyone thinks that, maybe he is the killer.
Right.
So that's kind of where we pick up, and he has return to his childhood town of Ashdown to seek help. Everyone they recover the corpses of Maria and her friends from the first movie from the woods. Christopher is believed to be responsible. So that's kind of where we start. So the incident is called the 100 Acre Woods Massacre.
Classic.
So this damages his reputation. So he's now an outcast. He has nightmares.
He loses his job, I believe, too.
Yeah, he was
a
nurse or a doctor. Yeah, wanted to be a doctor. So he loses his job and he goes to this hypnotherapist to deal with this childhood trauma to see whenever his twin brother Billy was kidnapped and never seen again. So already we're starting to see more backstory as far as like what his childhood was like outside of just like befriending these what everybody thinks
woodland
are
creatures.
Imaginary. Everyone else thinks they're imaginary, right?
Yeah, of course.
So like he's seen this hypnotherapist, and you come to find out that he has this little brother Billy who was kidnapped from a birthday.
Yeah, him
years
and
earlier.
6 other kids, I believe, because I think there were 7 total, is what they said.
Yes. So that's we're starting to get a little bit of backstory on the characters, which I thought was awesome.
Yes.
Also, Scott Chambers, who played Christopher Robin, is not the original character, like the same actor from the first one, and he had never acted before this.
No.
And he fucking crushed it.
He
did a good
great.
job.
He was great.
He did a good job of kind of making you feel the emotion of someone who's not believed, even though we all watched the first movie and we know this shit happened.
Yeah.
So he did a great job on that. So kudos to Scott Chambers on that. So kind of while we're getting this backstory, meanwhile, in the 100 Acre Wood, Pooh, Piglet, and now we're starting to be introduced to some other creatures. Owl is the biggest one for now.
Yep.
There's more to come. They're forced to hide because some people do believe Christopher Robin, and they are out to hunt them.
Yes, there you see like a group of 3 guys showing up, and then that's when they first show up, and of course, they got shotguns. They're all running around like, oh god.
Right.
One of them manages to kill Piglet. Blows his head off, and then that's kind of like when we first get the first real glimpse of Owl when he shows up too, helping them, and I think he takes the dude and carries him off or something. But that's when they first show up, and they're like, oh shit. We're being hunted, so,
Did we skip the first scene, though?
What was the first?
The RV.
Oh, no, yes, we did. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, you're fine. You're good. You're good. I did the same thing. So the first scene was there was a couple of women in an RV, like, camping in the woods.
Yeah.
And they're attacked by Pooh and Owl, and which is pretty gnarly because, like, they're kind of joking about the 100 Acre Wood Massacre, and then the RV gets hit and starts rocking.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden,
and they're just like, "Oh God, go check it out." No, you check it out. Like, oh, it's probably nothing. Like, seriously?
Yeah. So Terminator Winnie the Pooh like flips over the RV.
That was amazing.
Into the lake, and they catch it on fire. The one girl crawls out, and she's all burned. Which I thought they did a good job. One nitpick, I was like, it was a little dark in that scene. It was kind of hard to see.
Because all they had was the moonlight,
right?
Is the only lighting really. So
which I think probably goes to talk about to the budget as far as like when you start doing close-ups, you can really see your issues with makeup. So maybe that was part of it. But I thought the vibe overall was really good.
Oh yeah.
And this is where we get our first look at probably the most badass weapon that I've seen in a slasher in a long time, which is Winnie the Pooh. He's carrying around a fucking bear trap on a chain.
That was so awesome.
So he puts the one surviving woman, he puts her head on the bear trap and then pushes it down and crunch. You get the idea. So kind of backing up a little bit. That's the kind of the cold open where Pooh and Owl, they kill these first 2 women, and then we get the Christopher Robin backstory, and now we're at the scene that David was talking about where some people are out hunting for them. Piglet takes a shotgun to the face. He's dead. And so Winnie the Pooh and Owl are now trying to figure out what they do next. And Owl is kind of he's kind of instigator. He's like, we shouldn't wait for these assholes to come out in the woods and kill us.
Well, he was the only one that was talking up to that point. So he was kind of like almost like the leader you want, almost. Yeah, like instigator, like just being like, yeah, we have to do this, otherwise we're going to die. We're going to have to take the fight to them kind of thing.
Exactly. And which is also a huge difference from the first one when they didn't talk at all. So we're already getting a little bit of dialogue from some of the characters. So they decide to take the fight to Ashland. Ashland, right? Ashdown.
Yeah.
So they, at this time, they are kind of going to retaliate. So let's stop there and let's kind of talk about our impressions on these first few scenes, which is the cold open with the deaths, and then the deaths of the hunters here.
Yeah.
First thing, I guess I can start us off on this one.
Yeah.
The first thing I noticed was the big difference in the costumes.
Oh yeah.
It was night and day.
For sure.
It's not a latex, whatever, rubber mask anymore.
Happy face mask.
100%. They absolutely spent time and money on the makeup, and I thought it looked really good. Also, all the actors that played Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, and Owl, these are all new actors behind these characters, and I thought they did a much better job of just how they carry themselves in their portrayal.
Absolutely.
Definitely some throwbacks, and we'll get into this a little more, to some other older horror. I think Winnie the Pooh definitely reminded me of kind of that Jason character, kind of hulking, lumbering.
Yeah, silent stalker.
Exactly. I thought they did a really cool job with that. And then overall, it looked better. It looked better.
So much better.
Like, I mean, it's literally night and day at this point, I think, between that.
Yeah, and one of the things I do like too is the first movie, like Pooh was constantly like dripping honey, which looked like KY jelly that you said, like throughout the entire film, like it's just gushing out of his mouth. Like this movie, like it's gone, and I think there's a good reason for it. We'll get into that later, but yeah, that was one of the things I noticed too. Was like, oh, thank God he's not just drooling KY jelly all over the place again.
Yep. So we continue through the movie, and where Christopher loses his job, as David mentioned, as a doctor, nurse, and he is continuing through his hypnotherapy. And he learns that a hunter had survived the attack in the woods from Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, and so he learns that it was someone that he knew from school, I think.
Yeah, he knew the guy for something. Yeah, and he asked him. He was like, who did it? And like all he wrote on that board, because this dude was mangled as fuck, like beyond belief. Like I couldn't believe he recognized him getting wheeled in the gurney. Like he was like, "Oh look, there's my boy," and it's like, how did you know that was him?
Yeah, he took off his little bandage, and I mean it was for being daylight and a up close scene of the carnage, and I thought it was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, but like, what is it? He wrote like on a little board. He said, "You were right." Like that's all he said.
Yep.
Like you were right. So he's like, "Oh shit,"
Yep. So we see Christopher Robin continue to kind of go through this hypnotherapy, and he starts to get more and more details about the abduction of his brother.
Yeah.
And so he starts to notice that there's a janitor, right? It was
he was a janitor at the hospital.
Cavendish, who is this janitor at the hospital. And as he goes through the hypnotherapy, he realizes that, hey, this guy looks familiar, and he realizes why. And he finds out that this guy Cavendish, he confronts him about the creatures, basically. Because remember, at this point, nobody's believing them.
No.
And so after he confronts them, he realizes that he worked for this Dr. Arthur Gallup, who was a scientist from town, who had forced him to kidnap children around Ashdown for experiments with animal genes. Yeah. So we start to get background on the fact that maybe these aren't just like imaginary creatures. These are science experiments gone wrong.
Exactly. And oh yeah, by the way, something, there was 7 children who were abducted.
Right. And so he realizes, we're starting to kind of get the thought that maybe his missing brother who was abducted was part of this group. So I like the idea that like these aren't just like everyone's like, oh, like the makeup is like this man-animal hybrid. It makes sense now.
Yeah, it's not like a freaking 6 foot, pig guy in overalls. That makes no sense. Exactly. Now it's like, oh shit, okay, they're actually putting a little bit of backstory into this.
Exactly. So we get the idea, that this is not just happenstance, or this is not just imagination. So that we find out that the children did not survive, and that they were buried in the 100-acre wood, where they came back as these half-animal, half-human hybrids who have all of these factors that are like, they are super strong. They
can regenerate.
Remember that.
Yeah.
They have this enhanced healing factor. And so whenever he gets all this information, obviously Christopher Robin's a little bit taken back. And Cavendish admits that Billy, his brother, was one of the victims that was resurrected as Winnie the Pooh.
Yep. So yeah, it's his brother.
So he pulls out a pistol and commits suicide out of guilt. So here we are with Christopher. He finally gets a little bit of like what you think would be some closure or some details. Yeah. And the guy kills himself. And so he's still at this point now where he's like, okay, what do I do with this
Yeah,
information?
like the only other guy who knows all this is now dead. And I did have a problem with how easily he told him about like, oh, I kidnapped all these children. I threw them in the back of my van. I brought them to this guy. And he did not seem to feel bad whatsoever.
Right.
And then, like, he's going through all in all, like, I think because he had debt problems.
Gambling debt or something?
Gambling debt. And that's why he did it. And then he was all heartbroken because he's like, but then I lost my family, too. And it's like, dude, fuck you. You kidnapped 7 children.
Yeah. Like you knew what was
deserve that.
happening.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like, so fuck you, bro. Like, nobody feels sorry for you.
Exactly. So, and at the same time, now that he knows this, it's like, thanks, asshole. What do I do with this? Everyone already thinks I'm the killer.
Yeah.
No one believes me. No one's going to believe this shit either. So
No.
now Christopher is at a point where he's like, what do I do? So we'll go ahead, we'll stop there and just kind of recap here. I think we kind of mentioned it. I love the backstory. It's perfect. They did a good job of being like, this is what happened. This is why they look like human-animal hybrids. Details into why they're super strong. We've got the background onto why they're upset at Christopher Robin. I guess upset is kind of an understatement. But why they're like these killers now. And it's because they were bred with these animal genes that made them strong and mean, and and then they realize, oh, guess what, they're out of control, we got to dispose of them. That never works. If you've ever seen any movie where they're experimenting,
absolutely not.
When you try to destroy the experiment, that's when it usually gets out and wreaks havoc.
Yeah, because they said that like he killed them, buried them, and then they crawled out. No, they didn't come out. They said like the earth just pushed them out.
Yeah, like they rejected the evil,
kind of, so to speak. Which I was like, okay,
Yep.
so they're almost like undead freaking creatures of the night almost.
Yep. So Christopher wants to warn the town about these creatures' imminent attack, and he faces ridicule, skepticism. Of course, they don't believe him.
Obviously.
So now we've got Pooh and Owl planning to embark on this murderous rampage through Ashdown. Now, before that happens, we are introduced to a new character who's the most diabolical, most awesome character, I think, in this fucking story. And that's the character of fucking Tigger.
Oh, yes. He was so amazing. Like, I love the line because, like, the cops found the tree they were hiding in.
Yes.
And they see, like, they see, like, a table, like, covered in body parts.
Yep.
And the cop's like...
And a door that was closed earlier in the movie.
Yeah, like a metal door.
Now it's open.
And now it's open. He's like, we got to fucking bounce. And the best line of the movie, he goes, hey, that's my line. And then kills him.
and at that point, you don't even see Tigger. He's like in the dark and concealed, but
can't
you
see what he
know
looks like.
from the line, that's my line, let's bounce. You know it's fucking Tigger.
Yeah.
So we were like, all right, now we're back up to 3. We've got Piglet down because he took the gunshot.
Yeah.
And now we've got Pooh, Tigger, and Owl. Right?
Yeah.
So they're headed towards Ashdown, and they're ready to go on this murderous rampage. And they kill several residents. They start with Christopher's best friend, who's Finn, which I thought was kind of like I don't know. I didn't really...
Not really romantic. It was...
No. Finn's the guy. Remember?
Oh, Finn's... I thought it was the girl.
Remember the guy gets out of the shower, and there's like owl.
Oh,
I thought it was a pile of shit, but it was like owl pellets.
Yeah.
Because Owl was like... It was just a weird, I know he was a character, and it served his purpose as like a kill, but I just thought... It didn't really do a lot to enhance it for me.
Not really. I think they just kind of wanted to show how they were like, okay, we're taking the fight to humans because they were home invading people.
Yeah. So they kill him first, and then we kind of jump over to Lexi. Lexi is the one you're thinking about. Okay. Like they kind of like they were friends, but kind of maybe romantic. I don't know. We'll see how this story progresses.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's babysitting a little kid. And this is where I love the tie-ins to old horror because you start to see it. First of all, the kid's name is fucking Freddy.
Yeah, and he was wearing a sweater that was just like Freddy Krueger's, right?
Yeah, he was wearing the Freddy Krueger sweater, and he had did he have what's the hand?
Yeah, I think he had that, and I think he had a Jason mask too.
Yeah, he had all kinds of throwbacks to like all the old fucking slasher guys. And then also, I didn't even think about this, but one of the other podcasts I was listening to pointed out that there was a bunch of red balloons hanging around, which makes me think of it.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, yeah, I didn't notice
there were balloons. I didn't notice that though with them being red. I just was like, oh, there's balloons everywhere. Or
exactly.
Whatever.
And they were watching a horror movie, which happened to be
the first movie,
the first Blood and Honey movie. So like they're watching that on TV while this is all going on. And yeah, they notice that there's a home invasion, and Pooh goes after it's Pooh, right?
Yeah, it was Pooh that was there. Yeah,
goes after Lexi and the little kid Freddy, and so. This is at the same time where they had shown earlier that Pooh had basically broken into Christopher Robin's house and killed his parents.
Ooh, the dishwasher kill. That was nice.
Yeah, so earlier in the scene, we see Christopher's mom unloading a dishwasher, and she gets mad because the knives were loaded in the dishwasher pointing up.
Yeah, and of course, foreshadow as hell. Like she cut her finger or something on it.
Yep,
And it was
yep.
like, oh, something's gonna happen with that.
Right. So Pooh, of course, the dishwasher opens. I think she goes to stand up and she opens the dishwasher by accident, and the knives are there, and he just takes her face
And Smash City.
yeah. So you see, it's getting very violent, and I'm like, at this point, he's killed Christopher Robin's parents, and then they have the Christopher's girlfriend, I guess we'd call it, Lexi, also gets attacked, and the little kid that that she was babysitting, they escape unscathed. And so now we've come to find out, earlier in the movie they mentioned that one of their friends was throwing a big party, a big rave party.
Yeah, but they obviously didn't want Christopher Robin there because of his history.
Which was shitty. Like, that's your friend, dude.
Yeah,
like,
and she said it right with an earshot, and he was
to
just
his face almost.
yeah, and he was basically like, "All right, bitch, I don't have to come."
Like, fuck you. You get what's coming then.
Yeah, exactly.
So the kid, it's like a costume party, and so of course when the Pooh and all them show up at the party, they're like, "Hey, the fuck is this mask?" And then he immediately gets killed.
Yeah.
So they go through this fucking rave party, which is at like this warehouse, and they slaughter fucking everyone.
Yeah,
and
there had to have at least been like 30 people there.
at least 30, 40. I mean, they put up a nice body count.
Yeah.
And some of the kills were awesome. Like remember the dude ran into they're in a warehouse. He ran into like this boiler room.
Oh,
and Pooh was like, "Cool, just close the door," and
then
cranked
turned
up the
it on.
fire. And I was like, that's awesome.
Right?
So there were some cool kills. And this is the point where we really get to see Tigger showcased.
Yeah.
Because he is
Violent and just, yeah.
he's almost more Freddy Krueger than
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger was in some of the movies that he did.
I agree.
Did you
Yeah.
notice like all the lines where he kept on calling everybody bitch?
Yeah.
He's like, "Where are you going, bitch?" I was
Yeah.
like, that's totally Freddy. And he had these long claws that he kept
That he kept using.
tack along like the handrails, which remind you, obviously very reminiscent of Freddy in the boiler rooms.
Yep.
So and then the one girl that he remember he was poking her from underneath the
Oh,
scaffolding.
God, yeah. She fell over, and so he was just jabbing her.
And he grabbed her hair to hold her down. And he was just stabbing her. Like, I mean,
Ooh, he was brutal.
He was brutal. And then actually, like when I was like reading through like a bunch of details, they said that like whenever he got shot, Tigger got shot. They said he died.
I kind of was wondering that because he does get shot by Christopher Robin once he shows up.
And he ran off.
And he shoots him, and that's the last we see of him for the rest of the movie. So it's like, okay, I guess he's dead. So that leaves two left.
Right.
Pooh and Owl.
I also want to talk about a scene that I thought was a really cool scene, which was the fucking chainsaw.
Oh,
Go back to Leatherface. Like,
Yep.
Pooh gets a chainsaw and it gets lit on fire, so he's got a flaming chainsaw.
Yeah, chasing down Christopher Robin and Lexi, I think, too. It was them two, right?
Exactly. So Christopher and Lexi managed to kill Tigger, and they learn that Bunny, who is Christopher Robin's little sister, has been kidnapped. Right?
Yeah.
So they go and they return to the 100-acre wood, and they engage in a fight with Pooh, who obviously subdues them both with relative ease.
Yeah, that was super easy for him.
And when Christopher Robin decides to call Pooh by his real name, Billy.
Oh, yeah.
So this is kind of the point. I had a problem with this because in the first one, there's always that point in the slasher where they try to appeal to their like human or once human side, right? Like, oh, family or what. They always try to do that, and the killer always seems like they stop for a minute and they're like,
processing it.
And even in the first one, when he was like, "No, don't do this," and then he slits her throat.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Pooh is a fucking gangster. Pooh's not going to give a shit about
No.
Billy.
Yeah.
Billy's dead.
Billy
right?
is
I
far
am Winnie the
gone.
Pooh. And I thought that he was going to be like, nah, fuck that. But he kind of like gave them enough time to basically end up killing him.
Well, yeah, because they were also at the grave sites, too, of them. And that kind of caused him to just stop and pause and be like, what are we doing, bro? Like,
Right.
They're
But-
getting away.
Right. But he tries to appeal to his human side, right? And he's like, didn't he say like, he blamed Christopher for abandoning them again. And he was like, you're responsible for Eeyore's death.
Yeah.
So, Christopher, it gives him enough time to kill Pooh.
Well, he
right?
finds an axe,
With
right?
an axe, yeah. But
The best line of the movie.
it was the best line of the movie. You give it to him.
Yeah, he was like mid-swing, and then it cuts up to Pooh, and he goes, "Oh, bother," and then splat, just
Splits his face.
splits his face in half.
And he falls back into like the grave, the
yeah.
hole where they had all crawled out of, or the earth rejected the evil.
Yeah, whatever part. Yeah,
Yep. So Christopher is forced to, kill Pooh, and he's reunited with Lexi. And
then they find his sister,
Yeah.
Which that never led to anything, and it was just like, oh, she's back, and it was like, well, where was she? Why'd they take her? Like that bothered me, was the part of kidnapping the sister, but they never mention it again. They just find her and everything's fine. So
It might have been just like trying to like lure,
I guess,
Christopher Robin, but that's fair, fine. It just didn't do it. It could have done without it. Like,
it was just weird that she was not in the scene, and then she was in the scene. It was
also,
like,
why didn't they just like, she was in the house when Christopher's parents got killed, so why didn't they just kill her?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh
right.
well, whatever.
So basically, there's footage now from all these creatures killing all these people all over Ashdown, and so it goes to the police. Christopher Robin is cleared of all of his wrongdoing, so seeming to have cleared his name.
Yep.
And so we're still at the point now where the only one that's survived is Owl.
Yep.
And so we flash to the tree where they were all hiding out, their lair, so to speak, and we see that Owl has recovered Pooh and Tigger and Piglet, and he's trying to find a way to, he says, I'll promise to find a way to revive them with some help from some old friends.
Yeah, and then you start seeing Piglet's head is pretty much regenerating, and so I'm pretty sure it was the.
He had his wing dipped in honey. Remember?
Yeah, because I think it was Cavendish who said something about the regenerative properties of honey with them, and it was like, oh, I was like, okay, it's kind of dumb but kind of cool at the same time.
Exactly.
So then that makes me think that's another reason why they got rid of the whole drooling honey shit from the first movie.
They wanted to give it like meaning, like it means something.
Yeah, and it also kind of makes sense because Pooh gets his ass whipped at the end of the first movie, but he's still alive. So it's like, well, he's got honey on him, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Exactly. So, which I thought was kind of a cool idea. Like, okay, the honey is going to regenerate them, so they're not dead. So Winnie the Pooh, they're all going to come back and live to fight another day.
And they'll probably have like Rabbit and the kangaroo.
Is it Roo?
Roo. And there's got to be one other because they said there were 7 kids.
Yeah. There's going to be other characters that are going to join future films. So
Yeah.
This is where the Poohniverse is coming
I'm
from.
so excited.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't heard, they have what's called the Poohniverse, which is essentially the horror version
Of Avengers.
of the Avengers, where they're going to have all these characters that are going to be fighting together, killing together. But they're doing all kinds of other films. So obviously we now know that they're probably going for a third film, which is going to be coming. I think they said 2025.
I think it already got greenlit. So
Yeah. So we'll have a third Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. We've already gotten trailers for Bambi: The Reckoning.
Yep.
Which we saw a teaser for. And then in the little teaser, they mentioned, was it
Pinocchio, Peter Pan. I remember those two.
Which is a terrifying concept if you think about it in itself.
Well, they showed some of the concept art, and it was like, ooh, God, okay.
Well, think about it. Like, Peter Pan is like this flying kid who comes and like steals children in the middle of the night and takes them to Neverland.
Yeah, like, okay.
So so this is like...
So dark spin on that is going to be awesome.
And I think he said that, didn't they say that Tinkerbell is actually, her fairy dust is actually heroin?
Yes.
She's a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome. So they're doing all of these childhood, movies that we've all loved, most of them Disney characters, and now that they have free reign since the rights to them have become like open
to the public.
So they're doing the Steamboat Willie and all this shit. They're doing to do some crazy stuff. So be on the lookout for those films. So let's get into what do we think about this movie going into it, knowing what we knew from the first one, and kind of what are your thoughts?
So I had low expectations. Like I knew it was going to look better for sure because we saw the trailers and everything. That's a big thing they talked about. But I still had kind of low expectations because I was like, we'll see what they end up doing with it. But after watching it now, like it definitely, like I loved it. I thought it was great. And like I said, I'm super excited about this whole new universe they're building because like they actually seem to give a shit. Like they're not just putting together some shitty ass cheesy movie to make a buck. Like they're actually putting thought and effort into it. And that's what I'm excited about. Okay. So I was surprisingly stunned with this one. I went away being like, wow, that was really good.
I think we did a TikTok video with our like immediate reaction. I think you gave it a 6.5 out of 10 after seeing it. So which overall compared to the first one, definitely an improvement. I think my initial rating was a 7 out of 10. I think
so.
After the film, so it's one of those I feel like it's gonna go in like the cult classic, like. like that universe, if they do it right, is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, we all like, I'm 38, so we all grew up watching a lot of these
Exactly.
Disney movies. And so we know the stories. And we've seen over the years, like, let's not pretend like they're reinventing the wheel. We've seen movies where they have tried to take like, what's the lamb, like lamb chops and shit. They've done like killer lambs. Like we've seen. Well, the point is they've done kids movies and made them horror. This is like it's not the first time, but this is the first time. To your point, I feel that they are invested. These are horror fans making the movies that they want to see, right?
Exactly.
Like, they're like, okay, we're gonna make, because we know, like with Terrifier and all these other films that are coming out, and people are like, we love blood, we love gore, we want more. Now let's take a whatever, Sleeping Beauty or fucking Alice in Wonderland, and let's make it
a Child's Tale. Yeah,
it's going to be perfect. And so, like I said, the fact that they're in it, and the fact that they are invested and they're apparently willing to give money to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, if they got $500,000 for this one, or $1 million, let's just say, like if they're able to do that on $1 million, and you want to give these guys like a $5 million budget, $10 million,
imagine what they could come up with.
With streaming services, these things are going to be on, Shudder and stuff. Once they for the first one, definitely Tubi level.
Yeah.
But this one for sure you could put on Shudder or some of your, what I think Screenbox is the other one. Some of those other horror content,
like well-known ones, yeah.
And people will watch it. It's going to be huge on streaming. So I got a couple of trivia pieces that were interesting. I didn't find a whole lot on it because. Once again, I believe this was done in the UK, so like I didn't find a lot of details on it. But I did find that Winnie the Pooh's prosthetics in the first film cost over. Sorry, the first film was $770 on the costume.
Okay, I believe it.
This one they spent over $20,000 on just the prosthetics for Winnie the Pooh.
Well, I mean, that's $20,000 well spent.
You could tell. You could tell. I think we mentioned it. All of the cast members from the first movie were replaced. So we had Scott Chambers was now the lead for Christopher Robin. Ryan Olivia plays Winnie the Pooh, replacing Craig David Downsett, and Eddie McKenzie plays Piglet, replacing Chris Cordell. And I think I mentioned it several times, like the throwback to the old horror characters I really appreciated.
Absolutely.
I didn't even a lot of it I didn't even notice until afterwards, and I was like, I did. And then like I went back and kind of was looking at concept art and like watching little shorts of it, and I was like, these characters definitely have like a Jason and Freddy. Although like Owl was, I don't know where I'd seen Owl before.
I don't really think he had much to do with any throwbacks. Like, I think he was just his own character, and that was good enough.
Did you ever watch that? It was on Disney. It was the Gummy Bears. Remember?
Yep.
There was an episode where they like had these harpies. They were like these like like a vulture kind of. That's what he reminded me of. Was like this harpy character from Gummy Bears. I kind of doubt that's what they're going for. I just saw it. I heard someone say that they looked like these. Some kind of creatures. There were some kind of creatures from the Power Rangers movie. Okay. That they looked like. He looked like.
In the face, he looks like the ooze guy from whatever Power Rangers movie that was.
So anyway, long story short is like night and day. If you've seen the first one, or if you've been tentative seeing the first one, I would almost argue that you wouldn't even have to watch the first one.
Not really.
Like watch it, because I think it gives like a little bit to like of context to what you're seeing. Yeah. But at the same time, I do think it's almost, you could almost watch these as standalone and you still wouldn't lose a whole lot, because the fact that the second one you get so much backstory, I feel like
almost like that's the new beginning of it.
Right. Like, exactly. So I'm interested to see where the third one's going to go now, because it's like now everyone believes him. They know that these things happen.
There's evidence of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just like, it's got to, I mean, I'm assuming this is going to be like, hey, everyone thinks they're dead, and years later they start causing havoc. But like, are we going to is it going to be the same thing? Like, how do you not do the same thing? Like, you're in this town, right? You can't just have him wreaking havoc. There's got to be something new more to make you interested in watching it.
Yeah. And so maybe with some of these other movies coming out, like they'll introduce some of those characters into it to try to navigate whatever Poohniverse movie they plan on doing with every character.
Exactly. So overall, yes, this is a must watch. Right now, like I said, it only was in theaters for 3 days, so it's already out of theaters. But I'm assuming it will be coming to streaming soon. So
I'm sure, yeah.
If you're a big fan of the Disney classics and also that want to know what they would look like if everyone's getting mutilated,
this is your movie.
This is your movie. Definitely check it out. I encourage you to watch the first one, like I said, but you don't have to. So be on the lookout. I do know that the first one is streaming on Peacock. So if you want to wet your whistle while you wait for this new one to drop on a streaming service, go watch the new one, the first one, on Peacock.
It's definitely worth a watch. The
So,
first one.
There are some cool scenes in that one as well. So
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed talking about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 with us. Be on the lookout for more content. Future episodes we're going to cover coming up. We've got The Sadness coming up, and we also have Malignant, yes, which I believe is on Netflix as well. So you can go out there and watch that one and prepare yourself to discuss those films with us. So
Yep.
Be on the lookout. You can find us once again on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Twitter. We ain't on Twitter.
We ain't on Twitter? I
don't
thought we
think
had
so.
one. If not, I'll rectify that situation. TikTok. We're most active on TikTok and
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, we're most active there. But and then you can also find our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music. So all the big ones.
All the good stuff.
Go out there and take a listen and drop us a line, drop us a comment, email, chat with us. We love interacting with our fans. And we can, if you want us to watch something or have a movie that you think we can't handle,
be careful what you wish for.
I'll make David watch it
Yeah.
because, like Terrifier, I'm like, I'm not watching that. David, you go watch it. Let me know what I'm missing.
I'll be the guinea pig. Y'all send it my way.
I got to draw the line somewhere. I got to sleep at night. So anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Bye.